Joseph, known by his aliases Babu and Jaison, was a man of contradictions. By day, he was a humble former civil engineer eking out a modest existence in the southern state of Kerala, India, his reputation tarnished, but his intellect as sharp as ever. Once celebrated as a rising star in the field of civil engineering, Joseph's career had begun with promise and ambition. He had graduated at the top of his class from the prestigious Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, Madras, a prodigious talent known for his innovative designs and exceptional attention to detail. His peers often remarked on his uncanny ability to visualize complex structures in his mind, foreseeing potential flaws that others might overlook. His first job was with a leading construction firm in Kochi, where he worked on designing bridges and commercial complexes. His brilliance was quickly noticed, and within 2 years he was promoted to lead a team of architects and engineers on a high-profile project, a sprawling multi-level shopping mall. The assignment was a career-defining moment, and Joseph poured his heart and soul into it. He often worked late into the night, ensuring every detail was accounted for. But brilliance has its blind spots. In his relentless pursuit of perfection, Joseph ignored the looming deadlines and budget constraints that his superiors repeatedly emphasized. He insisted on using materials that, while superior in quality, significantly exceeded the allocated budget. When the project finally concluded, delays and cost overruns sparked outrage among investors. Although the building itself was a marvel of engineering, showcasing innovative features like an earthquake-resistant foundation and energy-efficient design, the financial damage was irreparable. Joseph's superiors blamed him for the fiasco. He was fired abruptly, the dismissal tarnishing his once spotless reputation. Word of his perceived recklessness spread quickly in industry circles, and job offers dried up. Despite his undeniable talent, no company wanted to take a chance on him. The bitterness of this betrayal weighed heavily on him, but it also planted a dangerous idea. If the world would not reward his genius through legitimate means, he would find his own way to turn his knowledge into wealth, by any means necessary. For a time, Joseph tried to keep his life afloat by taking on small freelance projects. He designed private homes, supervised repairs on older buildings, and even taught part-time at a local polytechnic institute. But the income barely sufficed to cover his mounting debts. Creditors began calling incessantly, and the stress of his financial ruin gnawed at him day and night. One evening, as he sat in his modest one-room apartment, sketching designs for a trivial construction project, an idea struck him. It began innocuously enough as a mental exercise. Joseph had been reviewing blueprints for a client's underground parking lot, noting the security measures they had installed to prevent unauthorized access. His mind, trained to find structural flaws, began analyzing the layout, identifying weak points in the system. It was a thought he couldn't shake. If one could bypass these vulnerabilities, how much wealth might lie within reach? The idea was intoxicating, a mental puzzle that reignited his creative spark. Joseph didn't act on the thought immediately. Instead, he began indulging in a peculiar hobby, studying the architecture of high-security facilities, particularly banks. He would visit libraries, poring over old books and blueprints. He began frequenting the local Kerala Gramin Bank, not as a customer, but as an observer. Sitting quietly in the corner, he noted the routines of the staff, the positioning of surveillance cameras, and the daily movements of the guards. The Kerala Gramin Bank was unassuming on the surface, housed in a modest 2-story building. Yet Joseph knew that its basement vault held immense wealth. Kerala's culture of investing in gold meant that the bank was a repository for not just cash, but also vast quantities of gold ornaments, bars, and coins deposited by locals. Joseph's sharp eyes and engineering expertise allowed him to notice a peculiar detail: the vault's location directly below a recently vacated jewelry shop on the ground floor. It was then that the idea took shape in his mind: a heist that would utilize his engineering skills to exploit the very vulnerabilities he had been trained to eliminate. Why attempt to break into the bank directly when he could access the vault from below? The jewelry shop presented the perfect cover. By renting the space under the guise of opening a business, he could drill into the bank's vault undetected. Joseph's preparation was meticulous, down to the finest detail. He didn't merely observe bank operations, he carried out mock scenarios in private, rehearsing potential risks and countermeasures. For instance, he calculated the exact weight-bearing capacity of the jewelry shop's ceiling to ensure it could handle the drilling equipment without collapsing. He also created detailed sketches of the bank and its surrounding areas, marking escape routes and contingency plans. As one investigator later remarked, it was almost as if he had orchestrated a military operation, complete with backup strategies for every possible failure point. The audacity of the plan thrilled him. It was as much a challenge to his intellect as it was a solution to his financial woes. The more he thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. His engineering background had taught him about reinforced concrete, soundproofing, and structural stability, all knowledge he could repurpose for this venture. He would need equipment capable of cutting through steel-reinforced walls and a team that shared his vision. To bring his plan to life, Joseph needed a team as skilled and desperate as he was. He began recruiting with the precision of a chess master, selecting individuals whose abilities complemented his own. First was Arun Kumar, a locksmith whose expertise with safes and vaults was unparalleled. Arun had spent years working for a security firm, learning the art of lock manipulation before he was fired for petty theft. His hands, once steady and meticulous, now sought purpose in Joseph's scheme. Then came Santosh Nair, a man with a need for speed. Santosh was a driver with an uncanny ability to navigate Kerala's winding roads at breakneck speeds. His calm demeanor under pressure made him the ideal getaway driver. Prakash Varma, a towering figure with a background in nightclub security, brought the muscle. Prakash's intimidating presence was matched by his unwavering loyalty, a trait Joseph valued deeply. Finally, there was Meera Devi, the linchpin of the operation. Meera worked as a clerk at the very bank they planned to rob. Her knowledge of the bank's layout, security routines, and personnel schedules was invaluable. Together, they formed a team bound not by friendship, but by mutual ambition and desperation. Joseph didn't just select his team based on their skills, he manipulated their motivations. He preyed on Arun Kumar's insecurities as a disgraced locksmith, convincing him that this heist was his chance to redeem himself. For Prakash, the enforcer, Joseph dangled the promise of financial stability for his ailing family, while Santosh, the driver, was lured in with tales of adrenaline-fueled escape plans that appealed to his thrill-seeking nature. They weren't just accomplices, Joseph later confessed during interrogation. They were chess pieces, each moved with precision. The operation began as soon as the shop's shutters came down each evening, signaling the end of the day for the bustling street above. Joseph had calculated this timing with precision. The neighboring shops typically closed by 8 p.m., and the area grew quiet by 9. This gave the team a narrow window of about 6 to 7 hours each night to carry out their work before the morning foot traffic resumed. Every minute was accounted for, every action rehearsed like a performance on the edge of disaster. With the jewelry shop below the bank secured, the transformation began. The team worked methodically to turn the space into an undercover operations hub, a task that required both ingenuity and subtlety. The false ceiling, one of the most crucial elements of the setup, was constructed first. Joseph designed it to serve as both a shield to hide their tools and activities and as a soundproof barrier. The ceiling consisted of multiple layers: wood panels to block visual detection, acoustic foam to absorb sound, and a final layer of insulation to further dampen vibrations. The shop's interiors were stripped down to bare essentials. Joseph insisted on minimal furnishings to avoid clutter, leaving only a few essential tools and supplies. Heavy equipment was smuggled in at night disguised as materials for the renovations of the supposed restaurant. A small storage area at the back was designated as the equipment room, housing diamond-tipped drills, gas cutters, and auxiliary tools. Joseph's plan didn't just involve executing the heist, but also confusing investigators. To that end, he purchased second-hand tools from multiple vendors, ensuring no single supplier could identify their activities. These decoy tools were intentionally left in conspicuous places, to throw off the trail. Additionally, he instructed the team to scatter old, worn-out equipment near construction sites, hoping the police would waste time pursuing unrelated leads. The best way to hide the truth, Joseph explained during interrogation, is to give them too many lies to chase. This strategy delayed the initial investigation, buying the gang valuable time to escape. Each item was meticulously cataloged, cleaned, and maintained by Aaron, who ensured their readiness for the weeks-long drilling process. Meera Devi, the bank insider, played a pivotal role in ensuring the team remained undetected. During her shifts at the bank, she observed the staff's habits and the vault's activity. She discovered that the vault's security systems, including its motion sensors, were temporarily disabled during routine maintenance every month. This critical piece of information allowed Joseph to finalize the timeline for the heist. Meera also provided a detailed description of the vault's structure, which Joseph used to determine the precise drilling location. The planning phase extended beyond the physical setup. Joseph drilled his team on protocols to follow in case of emergencies, such as unexpected visitors or noises overheard by bank staff. He even devised a set of hand signals to communicate silently during critical moments. Every detail was rehearsed repeatedly, with Joseph ensuring that each team member knew their role inside out. When the operation began in earnest, the team faced their first true test. The vault's ceiling, a 3.3-foot thick slab of reinforced concrete, presented an almost insurmountable challenge. Designed to withstand natural disasters and direct assaults, it was laced with steel bars and layered with high-density concrete. Joseph's calculations had prepared the team for the enormity of the task, but no amount of planning could fully account for the physical and mental toll it would take. Each night, as the city fell silent, the team gathered in the shop to begin their work. Arun operated the diamond-tipped drill, the whirring noise filling the air despite the layers of soundproofing. The drill worked slowly, grinding through millimeters of concrete at a time. The process was painstaking, requiring frequent pauses to cool the drill and replace worn-out bits. Arun's hands, steady and precise, guided the machine with unerring focus, while Santosh monitored the ventilation system to ensure the workspace remained breathable. The drilling process was not without its challenges. On several occasions, the team encountered steel reinforcements embedded within the concrete. Cutting through these bars required the use of the gas cutter, which generated sparks and intense heat. The confined space made this task particularly hazardous, with team members taking turns to hold the steel steady as the cutter sliced through. The sparks illuminated the room in bursts, highlighting the sweat-streaked faces of the team as they worked in near silence. Fatigue and paranoia became constant companions. The drilling often stretched into the early hours of the morning, leaving the team physically and mentally drained. Every faint sound from above made them pause, their hearts racing at the thought of discovery. Meera's updates each morning became their lifeline, her assurances that the bank staff had noticed nothing giving them the courage to continue. After nearly 4 weeks of relentless labor, the moment of breakthrough arrived. The night the drill punctured the final layer of concrete was marked by both triumph and terror. As the drill bit broke through, creating a small opening into the vault below, the team froze in place, their hearts pounding. Arun Kumar, who had been at the controls, let out a shaky laugh, his hands trembling as he stepped back. The team gathered around the hole, peering down into the darkness of the strong room. The air was thick with dust and anticipation. Joseph was the first to speak, his voice calm but resolute. "This is it. We finished what we started." Despite their excitement, they knew this was only the beginning of the most dangerous phase of their plan. The opening was carefully widened over the next few nights. Using chisels and smaller tools, the team smoothed the edges of the hole to prevent crumbling. Joseph inspected the work meticulously, ensuring the passage was large enough to allow access but not so wide as to risk structural instability. A pulley system was rigged to lower the team into the vault and lift the loot back up. The timing of the final entry was dictated by Meera's intelligence. The gang planned to exploit a window when the vault's alarm system was temporarily deactivated for maintenance. To further ensure their success, Joseph had procured a portable signal jammer, which would disable the motion sensors for the duration of their operation. When the time came to enter the vault, The team moved with precision honed through weeks of practice. The hole, now wide enough to allow access, revealed a space that had only existed in their imaginations. Joseph was the first to descend, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The vault was as formidable as he had expected, with rows of shelves lined with gold bars, neatly stacked bundles of cash, and ornate jewelry boxes. It was a trove of unimaginable wealth, but Joseph knew there was no time to marvel at the treasure. Each team member descended in turn, their movements choreographed to minimize noise and disturbance. Once inside, they worked methodically, adhering to the strict timeline Joseph had set. Arun focused on retrieving the gold bars, their dense weight requiring both skill and strength to load into the reinforced duffel bags. Santosh and Prakash handled the cash bundles, securing them in plastic wraps to prevent damage. Mira, who had joined them to assist, carefully packed the jewelry, wrapping each piece in cloth to ensure it wouldn't clink or scratch. The air inside the vault was cool and heavy, but the tension was palpable. Every sound, from the creak of the shelves to the rustle of the cloth, seemed magnified. The team communicated only through hand signals, their silence broken only by the occasional muffled grunt as they lifted the heavy bags. The gold bars, though compact, were a challenge to transport due to their weight. Each bar had to be handled with care to avoid dropping or scratching them, as even the smallest noise could be catastrophic. Joseph's leadership shone during this phase of the operation. He ensured that the loot was distributed evenly among the bags to prevent overloading. He also kept a meticulous count of the items taken, aware that the haul's size could dictate their chances of escape. His calculations allowed the team to extract as much as possible within the limited time available. The team spent no more than an hour inside the vault, their movements swift but deliberate. Once the bags were filled, they hoisted them back through the opening using the pulley system. This process was slow and grueling, with each bag requiring careful maneuvering to avoid scraping against the edges of the hole. By the time the last bag was lifted, the team was drenched in sweat, their muscles aching from the effort. As the first rays of dawn began to seep through the cracks in the shop's shutters, the team sealed the hole in the vault's ceiling. Joseph had prepared prefabricated panels designed to blend seamlessly with the concrete. These panels were fixed in place with industrial-grade adhesive, leaving no trace of their entry. The shop itself was restored to its original state, with the false ceiling reassembled and tools meticulously packed away. Their departure was as unassuming as their arrival had been. The team slipped out of the shop in pairs, blending into the waking city. Each member carried a bag of loot, their faces betraying no hint of the monumental crime they had just committed. By the time the first bank staff arrived to open the branch, the gang was long gone, scattered across Kerala with their share of the treasure. Joseph's meticulous planning extended to the aftermath of the heist. The tools and equipment used during the operation were systematically destroyed or disposed of to eliminate any traceable evidence. The diamond-tipped drills and gas cutters, along with smaller tools, were dismantled and thrown into the Korapuja River, ensuring they could not be retrieved. Plastic packets containing pledge slips from the looted jewelry were burned, erasing any links between the stolen items and the bank. In a move designed to mislead investigators, Joseph instructed the team to scatter a few plastic packets of jewelry along highways, hoping to create a false trail. He theorized that this would suggest the involvement of Maoist insurgents, who were active in the region and known for such tactics. This layer of misdirection was a testament to Joseph's ingenuity, though it ultimately proved insufficient to throw the police off their trail. The stolen loot, consisting of 167.5 pounds of gold, cash worth 30,000 USD, and various pieces of jewelry, was initially stored in a safe house near Kozhikode. The gold was hidden in the loft of a trusted associate's home, while the cash was divided among the team. Over the following weeks, the loot was moved to multiple locations to minimize the risk of discovery. Some of the gold was melted down and recast into untraceable forms, while the cash was laundered through local businesses. By the time the first rays of dawn illuminated the horizon, the team had completed their daring heist. Over weeks of drilling through the ceiling of the Kerala Gramin Bank's vault from the jewelry shop below, they had finally breached the impenetrable barrier. Inside, They worked quickly, filling bags with gold and cash. The final moments were tense, but efficient, their months of planning paying off. They sealed the hole they had created, restored the false ceiling in the shop above, and exited as if nothing had happened. The streets of Chilembra were quiet, the world unaware of the crime that had just taken place. Their escape, like the heist itself, had been planned meticulously. A white van waited a short distance from the shop, its interior lined with blankets to conceal their loot. They avoided main roads, navigating the labyrinthine streets of Chilembra to reach the highway without attracting attention. Each route had been scouted in advance, and their rehearsed movements ensured they avoided unnecessary risks. The van, rented under a false name, was a key part of their strategy, temporary and disposable. Reaching the outskirts of town, the group switched to a secondary vehicle hidden near a remote stretch of road. Here they transferred their loot, wiped down the van for fingerprints, and abandoned it. Their movements were quick, each action deliberate, leaving no time for second-guessing. Each member of the group then dispersed, heading to pre-arranged safe houses to lay low and await further instructions from their leader. For a few days, their operation appeared flawless. The police, upon discovering the breach, were baffled by the sheer precision of the crime. Investigators found a meticulously drilled hole in the vault's ceiling, and no signs of forced entry or alarms being triggered. The ingenuity of the heist shocked the public, who marveled at the audacity of robbing a bank from below. News of the robbery spread quickly, capturing the attention of the entire country. In a calculated move to mislead investigators, Joseph instructed the team to leave behind a cryptic message written in the dust on the vault floor: Jai Mao. This false claim of Maoist involvement was meant to direct attention toward insurgent groups active in the region. Additionally, they scattered remnants of pledge slips along highways to create a false trail, hoping to delay the investigation. He wanted us to vanish like shadows, Aaron later admitted during his testimony. The idea was to leave them chasing phantoms. However, Joseph's meticulously planned heist wasn't without flaws. During the chaos of the final hours, one of the team members had accidentally left behind a specialized tool used for drilling. The tool bore markings from a local supplier, which gave the investigators their first lead. Additionally, inconsistencies in the rental agreement for the jewelry shop raised suspicions. Witnesses recalled late-night activity and the delivery of heavy equipment to the shop in the weeks leading up to the robbery. The Kerala police, faced with a crime scene devoid of immediate evidence, initiated an extensive investigation. A significant breakthrough came when investigators identified a secret phone number used by the main suspects to communicate among themselves. This discovery became the turning point in the investigation. Further analysis of mobile phone records, including monitoring over 2 million calls, allowed the police to track the suspects' movements and communications. This led them to a house in Kozhikode, where the accused were hiding. On February 25, 2008, the police arrested 4 individuals, including Joseph alias Jaison alias Babu, the kingpin of the operation, along with 3 others, including a woman. The authorities recovered 80% of the stolen gold and money, marking a significant recovery in the state's crime history. The official arrest was formally announced on February 28, 2008, by K.S. Jangpangi, the Additional Director General of Kerala Police. The successful resolution of this case was widely regarded as a testament to the Kerala Police's investigative prowess, given the complexity and scale of the robbery. Following the robbery, Joseph became a ghost, slipping through police nets with calculated precision. While his accomplices scattered to different parts of Kerala and beyond, Joseph relied on a network of contacts built through years of criminal activity. These individuals, ranging from petty criminals to local landlords, provided him with shelter, food, and forged identification papers. Joseph's strategy revolved around staying in rural, less scrutinized areas and avoiding unnecessary movement. He changed his appearance frequently, shaving his head, growing a beard, or altering his wardrobe to blend seamlessly into his surroundings. He avoided electronic communication, relying instead on couriers and trusted intermediaries to stay connected with his network. The police, however, were relentless in their pursuit. Using call tower data and analyzing patterns of movement, they narrowed down his likely hideouts. The turning point came when an informant, motivated by the substantial reward announced for information leading to the robber's capture, tipped off the police. This informant revealed that Joseph was hiding in Kozhikode, in a modest house rented under a false name. The police prepared for a raid, ensuring every detail was accounted for to prevent his escape. When officers stormed the property, they found Joseph alone, seated at a desk cluttered with blueprints and notes. His calm demeanor suggested he had anticipated this outcome, and he surrendered without resistance. When the police raided Joseph's hideout in Kozhikode, they uncovered a treasure trove of evidence that painted a vivid picture of his obsessive planning. Among the items recovered was a notebook filled with cryptic diagrams and equations detailing everything from the vault's structural integrity to the timing of security patrols. Scrawled in the margins were phrases like, "sound carries," and "time is our enemy," reflecting the intensity of his focus. Perhaps the most chilling find was a draft letter addressed to the team, thanking them for their loyalty and reminding them of their ultimate goal. "We're not just stealing money. We're proving we're better than the system that broke us." Among the items recovered were detailed plans for another potential heist and a small portion of the stolen gold. Joseph's arrest was a major victory for the police and marked the beginning of the end for the Chilembra gang. With Joseph in custody, the police had their most valuable asset, a key player who could unravel the entire operation. Under interrogation, Joseph provided limited information, carefully choosing what to reveal and what to withhold. However, his capture sent shockwaves through his network, causing other members of the gang to panic and make mistakes. Arun Kumar, the locksmith whose expertise had been critical in bypassing the vault's locks, was tracked down to a village where he had been hiding with relatives. His role in the heist was confirmed through forensic evidence, including tools recovered from the Korapuja River. These tools matched the markings found on the vault and were presented as irrefutable proof of his involvement. Arun initially denied his role, but eventually broke down under questioning, admitting how he had been recruited by Joseph and lured by the promise of wealth. Santosh Nair, the getaway driver, was equally elusive. He had been moving between towns, relying on his street smarts and a network of low-level criminals to stay off the radar. However, his distinctive appearance and overconfidence became his downfall. Witnesses from a bus station identified him, leading to his arrest. During interrogation, Santosh displayed a lack of remorse, openly boasting about his role in the heist. This cavalier attitude not only strengthened the prosecution's case, but also earned him the harshest sentence during the trial. The arrest of Meera Devi, the insider, was a pivotal moment in the investigation. Meera had been a trusted employee of the Kerala Gramin Bank, known for her diligence and professionalism. However, financial pressures and personal debt had pushed her into collaborating with Joseph. Meera Devi's arrest shocked not only her colleagues, but the entire town of Chilembra. As the insider who had provided critical information about the bank's layout and security protocols, her role was pivotal to the operation's success. The police apprehended her at her workstation, where she had been calmly typing up routine reports. Her composed demeanor during the arrest baffled investigators, who later described her as the perfect double agent. Evidence recovered from her home included handwritten notes detailing the bank's vault specifications and the schedules of security personnel. During interrogation, Meera admitted her involvement but remained defiant, saying, "If it weren't for me, they wouldn't have made it past the first step." The trial, held in the Manjeri fast-track court, quickly became a national spectacle. Journalists from across the country flocked to cover the proceedings, turning the courtroom into a stage where the intricate details of the heist were laid bare. The prosecution presented a meticulously constructed case, highlighting the gang's planning, execution, and subsequent downfall. Evidence presented included the recovered gold and cash, tools used to breach the vault, and forensic analysis linking the robbers to the crime scene. Witnesses, including shopkeepers and locals who had seen the gang members before and after the heist, provided critical testimonies, The prosecution painted Joseph as a calculated and charismatic leader who had used his engineering expertise to outsmart the bank's security systems. They detailed how the gang had rented the shop below the bank under the guise of opening a restaurant, soundproofed it, and drilled through a meter-thick concrete ceiling over several weeks without arousing suspicion. To ensure their tools couldn't be traced, Joseph orchestrated their disposal with the same precision he applied to the heist itself. The gang dismantled the drills, gas cutters, and other equipment into small parts, which they packed into waterproof bags. These were later dumped into different sections of the Korapuja River to make retrieval and reconstruction nearly impossible. As Joseph explained during his interrogation, evidence is like breadcrumbs. If you scatter it far enough, no one can follow the trail. Joseph, ever the strategist, represented himself in court. He argued that the crime was victimless, targeting an institution rather than individuals. His eloquent defense framed him as a modern-day Robin Hood, exploiting systemic inequalities for personal gain. While his arguments earned him some public sympathy, they did little to sway the court. The prosecution dismantled his defense by highlighting the risks posed to the community and the trust lost in financial institutions. The trial unfolded like a crime drama, with each member of the gang playing a pivotal role in revealing the inner workings of the heist. Arun Kumar, the locksmith, was among the first to testify. His confession highlighted the gang's preparation, from the acquisition of specialized tools to the sleepless nights spent drilling through the vault ceiling. Aaron described how he had been approached by Joseph, who had offered him a significant cut of the loot in exchange for his expertise. Financial desperation had pushed Aaron to accept the offer, but as he spoke in court, his regret was palpable. His detailed recounting of the heist's technical aspects, including the use of soundproofing materials and the precision drilling technique, left the courtroom in awe of the gang's ingenuity. Meera Devi's testimony was another turning point in the trial. As the insider, she had provided the gang with detailed information about the bank's security systems, including the location of surveillance cameras and the timing of security patrols. Meera maintained her composure throughout her testimony, calmly explaining her motivations. She cited mounting debts and familial pressure as reasons for her involvement, but her lack of visible remorse became a focal point for the prosecution. They argued that her role was not one of coercion but of calculated betrayal, making her an indispensable part of the operation. Santosh Nair, the getaway driver, took a different approach. His brash personality, which had made him invaluable during the heist, backfired spectacularly in court. Santosh showed little remorse, often smirking as he recounted his role in transporting the stolen loot to a safe house. His behavior earned him the ire of the judge, who described him as a danger to society. The prosecution used Santosh's testimony to highlight the gang's reliance on individuals who prioritized personal gain over ethical boundaries. Prakash Varma, the muscle of the group, provided a stark contrast to Santosh. Prakash's testimony revealed a man deeply conflicted about his role in the heist. He admitted that he had been drawn into the plan out of loyalty to Joseph but had harbored doubts from the beginning. Prakash's emotional testimony humanized him in the eyes of the court, showcasing the internal struggles faced by some members of the gang. After months of deliberation, the court delivered its judgment. Joseph received the harshest sentence, a combination of 20 years of rigorous imprisonment for his leadership role and the use of explosives during the heist. The court highlighted his calculated planning and lack of regard for the law, labeling him the mastermind behind the operation. His eloquence in court and self-representation were acknowledged, but did little to mitigate his sentence. The other members of the gang received varying sentences based on their roles and levels of cooperation during the investigation. Arun Kumar's cooperation and remorse earned him a lighter sentence, while Santosh Nair's unapologetic demeanor resulted in one of the longest prison terms among the accomplices. Meera Devi, despite her critical role as the insider, received a sentence that reflected the court's acknowledgement of her financial struggles, but did not absolve her of responsibility. The prosecution's case was bolstered by the recovery of 80% of the stolen loot, including gold bars and cash bundles, and the auctioning of properties purchased with ill-gotten gains. This recovery allowed the bank to compensate its clients, a rare outcome in cases of this magnitude. The meticulous investigation and prosecution were widely praised, setting a benchmark for handling complex financial crimes in India. The Chelembra bank robbery left an indelible mark on the town and the nation. While the recovered assets provided financial restitution, the psychological impact of the heist lingered. Many locals withdrew their savings from banks, opting instead for private safes and alternative investments. The heist exposed vulnerabilities in banking security and prompted widespread reforms, including stricter monitoring of rental properties near financial institutions and enhanced surveillance protocols. For Joseph and his crew, the aftermath of the heist was a sobering reminder of the fine line between genius and recklessness. Joseph, now serving his sentence in Viur Central Jail, became a figure of intrigue among fellow inmates. His tales of the heist, told with the flair of a storyteller, turned him into a prison legend. Yet, in his quieter moments, Joseph often stared out of his cell's narrow window, replaying the events that had led to his downfall. His story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most meticulously planned crimes are vulnerable to the relentless pursuit of justice.